Morning. It's Tuesday, November 14th. Today I want to talk to you about a wonderful story that I read. This is something that I had personal experience with. And I can tell you our personal experience, my wife and my family, was a wonderful thing. But before I launch into that, let me tell you what's going on around in Europe, which is related to the story that I will tell you. So in Europe, night trains are making a comeback. They call it a resurgence, but it's a comeback. Some great movies were made about night trains, like Murder on the Orient Express and From Russia with Love. And there were many songs about night trains also. So there's nothing quite like an overnight train ride. And I don't know if people get excited before they leave or what they feel about the evening departure, whether they even have a sense of adventure. But in many cases, those are things that could happen to you if you've never experienced a night train before. And then the journey itself. Because you go to bed and then you wake up in the city or a country the next morning. If you're lucky. Sometimes things don't go as smoothly as they could, and that's part of the story that I will tell you. But in any event, riding on a train overnight can be a memory. You have time to read a good book, or you can look out the window and watch the country fly by. And those are good things. An exciting experience that you will remember for a long time. So let me tell you about my experience with my family on the night train. This was in the late 1960s. And my folks had just moved to Florida. So my family and I, and that's my wife and 3 kids, ages 12, 9, and 2.5, something like that. And I'm looking for a way to get to Florida at a reasonable price. And airline tickets were going to cost me for the whole family somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. I don't remember the exact amount, but flying to Florida back and forth overnight. And then there was a car rental fee, etc. So being the cheap bastard that I was at that time, I had to look for an alternative method to get to Florida. And I certainly didn't want to get in my car and drive the 1,500 miles. So I found that I could take an overnight train to Florida, $300 for the entire family, with a car rental for a week included in the price. So that was an astronomical savings. They was going to save me $1,500, $2,000, something like that. But in any event, we booked the train ride. And we had to get to Penn Station, or Grand Central, I don't remember which one we took off from. We had to get there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which we did. We got there in time. We got on board. I couldn't get a sleeper, so we were going to sit in the cabin overnight, but that was fine. And to proceed, the train takes off. And my son, who was around 9 years old at that time, was wandering around the train, and he uncovered a group of men playing poker. And he was watching them, and then the men asked him to do something, because they were in the bar car or something like that. They asked him to go get something for them. And so he stayed there for a couple of hours, being like a messenger boy for these poker players, and they gave him a couple of bucks. So he was happy, had a great time. The rest of us were sitting out there reading, and then after the train had gone about 4 or 5 hours, suddenly it started to reverse. It started to go backwards. And we found out there was some kind of blockage on the tracks ahead of us, and they had to move back about an hour and reroute us, so to speak. And that's what happened. We moved back, and so the 18-hour train ride became a 24-hour train ride. And that's what happened. Now, it wasn't so terrible. We got an extra meal out of the thing because we were able to eat in the dining car. So because the train was delayed, they fed us 3 times instead of just 2. And the food was decent, and the service was good. So we got there, we got off the train, the car rental was waiting for us. We had a great week in Florida, and the return ride was smooth as silk. Nothing else happened on the train ride back home. So it was a great experience. So train riding overnight, in my mind, is a wonderful idea. And if it's resurging in Europe, I think we could use a resurgence in this country too. So from my experience, if you look at this closely, overnight train rides should be pleasant. They should be memorable. And they are economic. It's a very economic way to travel long distances. But as I told you for my trip, luck has to be on your side, because things can happen when you're on the road for a long period of time. But when the train ride's at their best, the fares are a good value. And if you get a sleeper car for the night, that's a really good deal. And you're traveling hundreds of miles while you're asleep, that's not a bad deal either. But you have to be careful too, because as with everything else in life, if the trains become very popular and become very busy, then you can bet your bottom dollar that the prices are going to go up. And that could put them out of reach for many, many people. And night trains are complicated, and they're labor intensive. There's a lot of people working on the train, and it can be expensive to operate. That expense caused a lot of night trains to go out of business, because it was too expensive to run them. So why is there this resurgence in Europe? Has the expense equation changed? Not really, but the environmental concerns have been put at rest a little bit, because trains do not affect the environment as much as airplanes with their fuel emissions. So there are many people that are looking at that and considering the train ride as an environmental issue, and saving the environment is a very important thing. So we have enough people who consider that more important than the speed of getting somewhere. This thinking has taken place first in Scandinavia, and it has spread from there throughout Europe. Right now, the good rail links that exist are being used for long-distance travel between major cities, and it's booming. And in December, there will be a huge boost when luxurious new trains enter the operation between Vienna and Hamburg. These trains will feature comfortable sleeping cabins and discreet pods where solo travelers can sit and relax, rather than the traditional shared coachettes with everybody wandering the long aisles by when the trip is an overnight thing. And these 33 new trains are perhaps the most visible sign that night rail trips are back. And when will that start happening in the good old USA? We could use an overnight travel system. So I'll leave you with that. Something to think about. A comfortable, cheap way to travel. Sort of. Have a great day. Bye.